Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Bemis and I'm a member of Bristol's Sustainability Committee, and I'm so excited to talk to you today about a topic that I'm incredibly passionate about and that I've learned so much about recently. And that is the topic of rewilding. So I'm going to start off today by telling you a little bit about what rewilding is, and then we're going to take a tour of 2 rewilding projects in and around the Bristol community, which I'm very excited to show you. So with that, let's jump right in. So I don't know if you've heard, it's been in the news a lot recently, but New Hampshire's pollinators and insects are very much under threat right now. And we've seen a lot of population decline in our native bee and insect populations. And the reason is due to really 2 things. The first is habitat loss, and the second is the use of pesticides and other chemicals in our lawn care and other types of wildlife management practices. And this is creating incredible problems. I'm not sure if you know, but 1 in 3 bites of food that you eat can be attributed to New Hampshire's native bees. So that's an incredible statistic and really goes to show how important these species are. And it's not just bees, it's all pollinators, and they constitute an incredibly important part of our food chain that I think sometimes is overlooked, and we're realizing how critically important that is. So we need to protect these insect populations, we need to take care of them, and actually doing so is one of the most fun and exciting ways to give back to your local ecosystem. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how we can do that. So native plants are an incredibly important component of our ecosystem. They're the basis for the local food web for insects and birds. They provide food and habitat for birds, pollinators, and other wildlife. Native plants are also more resilient in the face of storms, droughts, and a changing climate. They're lower maintenance than non-native species, and they can provide food for humans too. Finally, native plants help to filter water, prevent runoff and erosion, and sequester carbon with beautiful 3-dimensional landscapes. So bringing these native species back into our lawn and our yard are incredibly important ways that we can support the insects and wildlife that share our communities. So the good news is that there's a movement that is budding and growing and catching on in local communities across New Hampshire and the Northeast. And this movement can loosely be called rewilding. So rewilding is the intentional practice of restoring native plants in all different kinds of spaces, whether it's urban, suburban, rural, and more. And the goal is to reverse habitat loss, support our ecosystems, and bring nature back into our daily lives. It's also the practice of letting go a little bit so that they're less manicured and more wild, and making the choice to share some of our space with nature. And rewilding includes embracing flowers and plants that you might not have incorporated otherwise, such as wildflowers. And it can also include embracing alternative lawn care practices, such as not using toxic materials. Another important component of rewilding is creating pollinator pathways. So that's the idea of connecting strips of vegetation through our communities and between communities, so that insects and birds and pollinators and wildlife have a continuous source of habitat, shelter, and food as they move through our ecosystems. So our committee is really excited about rewilding, and we're actually planning a rewilding demonstration garden right here in Bristol. So please stay tuned for more on that as it comes together. We'd love you to get involved. But there's a lot of other things that you can do in the meantime as well. So the first thing I would recommend is that you take the Pledge to Rewild. So if you visit the Wild Seed Project's website, we'll include the information below this video for easy reference. You can take this awesome pledge to rewild your yard, garden, or any other outdoor space that you have access to. And it includes a number of steps. They're fairly easy. They involve things like committing to not using pesticides and chemicals, and allowing native species back into your lawn. So I recommend taking the pledge and then going forth and adding some native plants to your garden, Another thing you can do is let your lawn go. I know that's a massive change for a lot of folks, but it's also kind of refreshing to just not have to worry about trying to grow grass where grass doesn't want to grow. And you can also come visit and get involved in our local rewilding demonstration garden. So we'll be talking more about that later this month. So before we move on and take a tour of some local rewilding projects, I want to share with you some information on where you can get native plants. So my two favorite sources of resources and plants are the Merrimack County Conservation District annual plant sale and the New Hampshire State Nursery. So the Merrimack County Conservation District annual plant sale happens every spring. It's a fundraiser, and they sell all kinds of plants, including vegetables and fruits and shrubs and so forth, but it's a great source for native pollinator plants as well. And the New Hampshire State Nursery also sells seedlings every spring. It's a state-run nursery. It's a government entity. And they grow all of their plants from seed. They are awesome. They're located in Boscawen, and everything is very inexpensive. So I couldn't recommend these two sources of plants highly enough. They're fantastic. And I would say in terms of information about rewilding, my two favorite resources are UNH Cooperative Extension and the Wild Seed Project. The Wild Seed Project is based in Maine, so they're just very close by. A lot of their recommendations are equally applicable to New Hampshire. And UNH Cooperative Extension has awesome talks all the time, webinars and other resources. We will include a bunch of these resources on our Bristol Sustainability Committee website, but you can also get on their email list and see what else they have coming up, which is awesome. So I'm very excited to show you around a couple of rewilding projects today. We're going to be visiting Karen Bemis's house, where she has been incorporating native species and pollinator plants into her lawn for decades. And it's amazing. It's actually not even so much a lawn anymore, but really a three-dimensional landscape that has a lot of different elements, and an incredible number of songbirds visit her house every day as a result. So we'll start there. She's located in Camelot Acres, right here in Bristol. And then after that, we're going to go over to Danbury, which is just 2 towns over, to take a look at my farm, where we're going to be actually creating a wildlife garden. So there's a section of wetland that needs a lot of erosion control, and we're going to be doing that with a pollinator garden so that we're getting erosion control benefits while also feeding our bird and animal friends. So I'm so excited to show you around, and please don't forget to also join us for the community forum later this month, where we'll be continuing the conversation in partnership with the library and talking more and answering any questions that you may have. So with that, let's go.
Hi, so we're here in the yard of Karen Bemis today. So Karen lives here in Bristol in Camelot Acres, and we're so excited to show you around and talk a little bit about what rewilding can look like in a suburban setting, and also some of the different plants that you might want to incorporate into your yard. So Karen, thank you so much for being with us and showing us around today. So how long have you lived here?
Hi, thanks Jamie. I've lived here a little bit over 30 years, about 33 years. When we first moved here, there was nothing but just grass here in the backyard. You can see that we've pretty much transformed it. We have planted a beautiful garden. Used to be a vegetable garden, but now the tree is so large we've kind of transitioned it to a perennial shade garden. Most of the plants we bought at the nursery, the state nursery, or the conservation, Merrimack Conservation, yes. And so we have a lot of, this is a great yard for, everything's blooming at different times. So you can see we have way in the back, we have the forsythia, it's bright yellow. That is really beautiful. It's the first pop of color. In the front here, and well, also in the back, we've got some lilacs. I've got a lot of lilacs around. These are some hydrangeas that will bloom much later in the year, and they'll last until, you know, frost for sure. We've got some rose bushes, not your typical rose bushes. These are more like beach roses.
So Karen, what do you have here?
Well, I'm planting today, and these I just picked up yesterday. They came from the Merrimack County Conservation District. And these are going to be in the back of the yard where I have a lot of water, and so it kind of runs down the driveway, and these plants are going to love that. They don't really require a lot of sun, but this is for a shade garden, and they will thrive in a wet soil, so they're not very fussy. We have 3 cinnamon ferns, and they're very beautiful plants. These are 3 marybells. I've got purple astilbe and white astilbe and some masterwort, so these are all bulbs. More blueberry bushes, because blueberries, you can never have too many blueberries. And here we have red Auger Dogwood. And they also will thrive in this wet soil, and it's a really beautiful plant. In the wintertime, these stems will be very bright red, and they provide a lot of beauty in a winter garden. And then in the summertime, they'll be flowering and pollinating. I tend to buy all pollinating plants. I try to do that so that there's lots of food for the birds, the bees, and the butterflies that come through, and of course the chipmunks and stuff too. But
it sounds like an awesome project. So it sounds to me like you're going to get a little bit of water management and possibly erosion control, but by doing it with these native species, you're also providing food for a lot of the wildlife, which is really awesome.
So this is a rhododendron. This is about it's probably about 25, 30 years old. Wow. And I've got 2 of them. And as you can see, they're starting to bloom. This is a very early bloomer. I have several kinds of rhododendrons. There's big leaf rhododendrons, and I have that over on the other side of the house. That blooms a little bit later. This is a small leaf, and this will bloom, as you can see, very early. Give it another week, and this will be absolutely loud with bees.
Awesome.
And they are so focused on it. They just drink the nectar, and they last year I actually came over and I was watching the bees, because it was just amazing how just much they wanted to drink the nectar. I actually reached down and pat a bee.
Wow.
It was
that's
it
an
didn't
incredible
care.
experience.
It didn't care. It was just going to drink the nectar. So this is a very the bees will come here for sure really early.
It's stunning. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it's just starting to open and it's going to be just profuse with flowers.
Wow. Really
we have
nice.
over here a lilac. This is an earlier bloomer also. So you can see they're starting to bud out a little bit. And this will bloom in 2 weeks, and of course that's going to be wonderful for the birds and the bees. If we keep walking up this way is a butterfly bush, and it doesn't really look like much, but this will be fantastic. You can see these tall spiky flowers. I've cut it to the ground before it, and
it looks like it's starting to come back.
It is,
You can see a little growth.
Right.
And I'm guessing this is named for the fact that it's good for butterflies?
Absolutely.
Yep.
The butterflies love it. The butterflies love it, the birds, the bees. So I have a lot of birds, bees, and butterflies in my yard.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for showing us around, Karen.
Absolutely.
This has been really great, and I hope you'll all join us for our community forum later this month, where we'll continue the conversation.
Thanks for coming by.
Thank you. Hey everyone, it's Jamie again. I'm so excited to be here today. So what we're doing today is we're planting a wildlife habitat, but we're getting multiple benefits from it. So we're really hoping to do 3 things. We want to filter stormwater, prevent erosion, and feed pollinators and wildlife. So we're doing all those 3 things. So as you can see behind me, this is, we have a pasture up above, and the pasture has unfortunately caused some erosion, and a lot of the stormwater runoff kind of runs down into this wetter area, and there's a stream down there. And so there's not too much going on here. There were animals grazing here up until recently, and we've noticed that it's causing some problems. So this is our farm, Three Sisters Eco Farm in Danbury, and one of our goals is to create wildlife habitat and make sure that we're sharing space with nature. So this is an area that the animals were removed from, and we're now planting native species to help with erosion control, make sure that we're being good stewards of our watershed, because this stream here runs into the Smith River, which runs into the Pemi. So we want to make sure that we're filtering water before it goes into our watershed, and we are also going to be creating habitat. So you can see here in front of me, this is an elderberry plant. Elderberry is becoming really popular for medicinal purposes. It's also a great wildlife plant, and a lot of different species eat the berries. So this is providing habitat, it's providing nesting area sites for different animals who like shrubbery and low bushes to nest in and feel safe in. And it's also medicinal for humans. So it's nice that you get benefits for animals and benefits for humans. And actually, that's kind of a theme here. A lot of the plants that we'll be using in this section are berry bushes. So we're doing blackberry, blueberry, and elderberry. And I'm holding in my hand a black willow as well. So there's an additional section down there that's experiencing a lot of erosion, another wetland area, and there's a culvert that comes under the street and puts water into this stream thing. So we want to work on, again, erosion control and water filtration. Black willow's perfect for that. So this is going to become a tree. It's going to be very big. So we're going to kind of put it in the back, and then we're going to do some wildflowers and shrubbery and so forth in the front, so that when you're walking by, you've got trees in the back and the lower bushes in the front. And this here that I'm holding is arrowwood. It's another plant that wildlife species love, and so we're kind of intermixing trees, berry bushes, and pollinator plants and wildlife habitat as we go. So we're excited to be here. It's a really fun day. All these plants were purchased at the Merrimack County Conservation District plant sale. Yeah, let's get to it.